Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for watching us online. This is the first episode of the podcast that hopefully will continue for much longer than one episode. We'll see how this one goes. My first guest is Aditya. So, hi, Aditya.
Hi, Tarun. Thanks for having me on here.
Thanks a
I'm
lot
also
for
like,
joining me. Yeah, I've been looking forward to this conversation for a while. I know we've had multiple conversations here and there, but I thought it would be great to kind of schedule some decent amount of time to discuss AI safety, and things like that. So really glad that you could make the time. I know you're traveling and stuff, so thank you.
yeah, I'm happy to be here. You might have already noticed, I love talking about these topics in person and online, and it's something that really makes me feel alive. So, any opportunity for me to go on about this is like welcome from me. So as an intro, I would say, yeah, hi guys, thanks for watching. My name is Aditya. I'm sure Tarun will put all my Twitter and other details to follow me on. I work in the field of AI safety. I'm currently doing a lot of things, but I have in the past and been part of the PhD program at IISc Bangalore in the computational data science department. I have done my bachelor's from NIT Trichy in instrumentation and control engineering, and I'm a contractor for various companies that try to hold workshops and offer funding for people interested in pivoting their careers towards making AI systems more safe, robustly, having robust guarantees on how they generalize to novel areas. So if you guys are interested in meditation, AI, consciousness, any of these things, feel free to hit me up. I'll be in Bangalore soon, and I love going for all these meetups that Tarun often organizes. So yeah, I think that would be like a intro to me.
Awesome, awesome. Why don't we start with something much before college, right? Like, what were you like as a kid? What were you into in middle school, high school? Uh,
Yeah, I
what?
mean, the story is like insane
Yeah,
because a lot of people
please.
don't believe this. Like, people who've known me, at least in the last few years, have a certain image of me. But as you might have imagined, like, I've changed a lot over the years, and I was actually not very good at studies when I was a
Oh,
kid. I was like, there's one memory I have of in 10th grade going to the temple and praying to God. And people who know me as a very scientific guy and very rationalist, already the image is breaking, right? And I was just hoping to pass the 10th exams. I didn't even want to get a good score. I was like,
right.
please let me not fail. Can you imagine that? That was how my childhood was because I was really bad at languages. I was not good at memorizing the grammar of Sanskrit and Hindi.
Right.
Uh, I used to read a lot of books though. I was a avid reader of fiction. So
Mm,
my uncle gave. I used to sit indoors and read. For example, I don't know if you know about this book called War and Peace by Leo
yeah.
Tolstoy.
Yeah.
So it's a big ass book, right? And I finished the whole book like in a few weeks. And I was in fifth grade, sixth grade, and I was so young back then. I used to read all the classics, Count of Monte Cristo, The Three Musketeers. I loved all these kind of books. I read everything. I finished almost the entire children's library.
Huh.
So my childhood was pretty interesting. So if you go back in fourth grade or fifth grade, I was in a boarding school in Ooty. I was
Mm.
staying by myself there. So we learned how to be independent. They taught us a lot of cool stuff like sculpturing, horse riding, and
Oh,
things
sweet.
like that. Yeah, it's called St. Lawrence. It's in Lovedale. So I had an experience of studying in a quite
Boarding.
posh. They make you wear blazers, and there's it's an interesting experience there. So I think fourth and fifth was like that. Then my mom
What-
was like, "What is this?" Yeah, sorry. What did you ask?
I said, what about later, like after fourth, fifth,
Yeah, then my mom
seventh?
was like, "What is this?" My mom and dad was like having an argument about how my dad wanted to give me the best education possible, right? Like he wanted to give me. He asked me. He didn't even put me in boarding school. He took both me
Mm,
and my sister and showed me the college and school and asked if we wanted to study there. And I said yes. She said no.
mm.
And it was my choice at that age to think about the big campus. We have like cross country running. We have karate class. We learned logo programming. We had a lot
Right.
of interesting opportunities there. My English became so good because I was introduced to English at a very young age, where we had
Right.
to speak in English to other people, unlike a state's medium school. But
Correct.
after like fifth grade, my mom was like, anyway, he will leave us after 12th or whatever. So I want to spend time with my son. So
Right.
she took me back to Palakkad. So I
Okay.
spent my since seventh onwards, I was in Lions School in Palakkad till my 10th.
So I think logo programming was probably everyone's foray into programming
Yeah,
as kid.
right. You remember the turtle thing? Like move up,
Yeah,
move
right,
down.
right,
Yeah.
right.
Did you
Yeah,
also like have it in your school?
yeah. Like in middle school, I think that was my first experience with programming, uh, drawing little boxes and triangles, and uh, some guy like this really smart chap in my not my class, but a different section would draw like concentric circles and like I was like so impressed. I'm like, how did you do that? And then it's like these loops and all that. Uh, but he was self-taught, you know. It's like my teachers never taught us such complex things. He just went and figured it out. I don't know from whom, and he would just do really cool things. Yeah.
Do you I still touch with him? Like, what does he do now?
So so after high school, like he was in a different section, so we were not really that close friends.
Okay.
But he went ahead and I think he did like a master's in mathematics somewhere in Chennai. I don't remember which college. It's one of those IISc type institutes. Um,
Like maybe Center for CMI or Center for
yeah, yeah,
Mathematical Institute, maybe.
mathematical institute. Yeah, right. So and then he went to Google. I think I remember him going to Google.
Is his
After that,
name Bhishma Raj?
I think he's 10 years older.
Older. Oh, I wouldn't know him.
I mean, he's my age, so 10 years older than Bhishma, probably. I don't know how old Bhishma is, but yeah.
Okay, okay. Makes sense. So yeah, that would be like my childhood stories, I guess. Unless you're interested in something specific about
Oh,
maybe about just generally you're asking, right?
yeah, just generally, like, did you like read sci-fi? Did you like play video games? That's usually the path people
Yeah,
take. Like, yeah, when people are interested in AI, and the path usually people take when they end up in AI, it's usually uh,
like
that
that.
kind of
Right, right.
background. Yeah,
I read a lot of sci-fi. I mean, for sure. You know, Asimov and all the classic sci-fi authors,
right,
Foundation. The thing is, I just read widely. Like for me, books were an escape. I used to
right.
read crazy levels of reading. Okay, I learned how to ride a cycle without
Mhm.
hands. Like I used to be able to
So that
ride a cycle without hands, so I could read. I used to hold a book
wow,
in my hands and keep reading while cycling from my school to my home because I don't want to waste a second. While taking a
right,
bath, I'll keep a book on the place where you hang the what do you call towel, right? So while I'm putting
right.
soap, I'm reading. Like I'm
Wow.
telling you, I was addicted to reading to a level where I was like constantly reading. I will forget to eat, forget to sleep. So, and I used to read everything. I don't mind. I used to read fiction, non-fiction. I read about Hitler. I remember reading as a kid about what happened in Nazi Germany, and it was like traumatic for me to see how they used to treat people, right? And
Right.
for a kid to like go into history and actually see all the stuff that has happened, genocides and things,
Right.
I think it really shaped me in a way where I became. I don't know. Have you read Robin Cook's books like Coma? No.
I don't think I completed Coma. I remember my friend giving me the book, but I never read it.
So those books kind of go into these details about how pain works, and like I remember some of the traumatic stuff is where they talk about how automatically human beings have a limit where after you get too much pain you just go unconscious, and it's
Right.
possible to chemically alter the brain or like to use drugs to block your ability to go unconscious, so you can torture a
Wow.
person beyond their level that they can handle.
Wow.
Just hearing that, and I was like, "Is this real? How does biology work? Who are doing
Seriously.
these things?"
Why would you kind of research into that?
No, it is part of a storybook. Like so Robin Cook writes fiction,
I
right?
know.
But he's going really like macabre, really like depressing kinds of stories where the innovative ways of hurting people. Uh, so I think I was like definitely
A
what do you
voracious
call
reader.
it? voracious reader. So that's definitely one of the reasons why I was interested in intelligence. And but I don't think I was like smart kid, right? Like I don't see the direct link between that and uh, AI. But that's my
Mm,
childhood story mostly.
mm. But you were always thinking about how your mind works, intelligence, like you were saying, right? Did you ever like obsess about things like that, consciousness, death, and those kind of topics when you were like in high school?
No, I think honestly speaking, I was more into Goosebumps and Archies and Tintin. Like I think if you ask me questions about deep questions about metaphysics, right, like about consciousness and stuff, I didn't have much of an opinion then.
Mhm.
It was Yeah, I was way more of the scientific. Now I'm understanding where I was. Back then, I didn't have
Mhm.
the words for it, but I think
Right.
I kind of believed in the whole reductionist principles of you take a thing, you break it into pieces, and then
Yeah.
you explain the pieces, and then it explains the full. The whole is equal to the sum of the parts, and not more than
Parts.
it.
Right. Right. Right.
Something like that. Like I was pretty much bought into the scientific explanations for everything. I believed in physics and determinism, and
Right.
I wasn't fascinated by these questions back then. At least in school levels, I was into anime. I was into we did play video games. So we didn't have a computer at home. It was
Mhm.
interesting. I was like no watching TV. Mostly I played Game Boy, Pokemon games, and so my
Right.
childhood was pretty like a normal kid's childhood. Yeah.
Nice. So when did you like switch into what got you interested into AI, right? AI safety. What was the path that you took uh, that you think led to you working in AI and AI safety?
I think it started with in around second, third year of my undergrad. So I went to undergrad in NIT Trichy,
Right.
and even then I was quite like studying Laplace transformations for a year, learning linear algebra, being fascinated with mathematics and physics, and even my high school also I was in Maharishi International Residential School in Sri Perumbudur. It is mostly Feynman and physics stuff. But the
Hmm.
shift towards AI, so I was mostly physics oriented kind of person, right? Like I liked
Right.
I liked quantum mechanics and black holes and that kind of cosmology. What is the shape? What is the shape of the universe? Is it flat or a curvature universe? Will the universe go with a big bang or a big crunch? How will the
Right.
end look like? I think my questions that fascinated me mostly was those questions.
Right.
And then it was around when I went to in undergrad of my college, I was studying instrumentation and control engineering, and we work with transistors and we work with electronics, and we didn't have that great facilities. I would say, even though we were a national college and we had like good rankings,
Right.
the equipment available in the labs and students' interest towards doing the experiments, I wouldn't say was up to par. Like people,
Right.
I don't know how it was in your college, but they often decide the theoretical values and they perturb the theoretical values to make the experimental values, and they do all the lab work in a way to just get marks. They don't really
Right.
care about the actual experiment, right?
Actual working. Yeah. Right.
And it was breaking me up because as a scientist I was had the spirit of a curious person. I was like I remember writing in the notebook like experiment is not conductable because the instruments are not repeatable and stuff like that. I refused to go down to the peer pressure. I used to ask questions in class, ask the questions to professors and ask them to explain things. And then people used to fight with me. I remember some students asked me, "Why are you making the class go on longer? Like let the
Yeah.
teacher end the class. I want to leave. If you want to ask questions, ask them in your own time. Don't block the entire class for you. Don't be selfish
Right.
that way." And I was like, "You guys came here to study, right? Like this is not even like a private college. This is like a government college. You wrote JE mains. You got good rank and came here. And don't you love the subject? Don't you want to understand?" So I was very frustrated because I didn't feel supported by a lot of people, and people were focused on getting marks, getting a
Yeah.
job, getting a resume padding with internships and papers. Everyone is in a rat race, and there's no
Right.
space for them to really explore their curiosity.
Correct.
And I couldn't do much also because some of the equipment is hard to buy, and I had these softwares where I could simulate the RLC circuits and everything. I did some stuff there, but quickly I
Hmm.
realized that the easiest way to do stuff and iterate quickly and get empirical data is in the field of computer science, because you can program, you can write code, you can see the code running. You don't need to get multimeters and transistors, and so whatever I wanted to do, I could do it as a programmer. So I did app development, I built Android applications, joined the college club called Spider.
Mm.
So that's my kind of shift towards programming. It happened in my college because of the fact of software is basically the domain where mathematics is cheap, is what they say. You know,
Right.
like physics is where you have to, experiments are costly in real world, but experiments are
Right.
cheap in the world of computers.
Right.
So that's the kind of like
Great way
shift towards programming. Yeah.
No, I think that's a great way to define computer science versus physics was
Yeah, right.
mathematics.
Like
A
I
great
think
way
it was
to.
Victor Arnold who said that quote. I love that quote when he said that. Like it was recently Andres Karpathy or someone retweeted that.
Mm. And
So
then
I was still
to
yeah,
AI
AI
after computer.
safety. I think the safety aspects came in when I realized that people were really buying into the myth of free will. So, Indians, especially, I could see that they were happy to use products for free, the free Google search, free Facebook. Back in 2015, 2013, I was watching how no one wanted to pay for the products they used. They spent all their time on the mobile phones and using all these applications, and the incentives were completely skewed, where the developers were thinking not about their consumers, the consumers were just users for them, right? They were thinking about advertisers, that the monetizing was completely done where they were trying to get growth, get people to be addicted, spend more time on their app. Even dating apps, like we discussed,
Right.
like if the major revenue is not really coming from getting the people into happy relationships, and if they
Right.
get more money from getting people keeping on right swiping on each other and having hookups, then that's going to happen. Like the system will actually end up creating the outcomes that are good for the people building this product.
Right. Yeah, the
So
incentives
I
are
will
completely misaligned, right? Yeah.
completely misaligned, and this is even more insidious because we all have this real belief that, oh, I can do whatever I like I have free will, right? And we have buttons that we can push. If a person who's very charismatic tells you the right words and knows your weaknesses and makes you feel fear, or they can make you vote a certain way, or they can make you buy something. So good salespeople exist, good politicians exist. There have been ideologies and cults that have been formed in the past, and
Right.
I was seeing this trend towards uh, data being given freely and people not realizing how valuable their own data was. So I got into data science and interested in that from the perspective of that's so around college is when I started thinking about the question of free will. I was thinking
Mm.
about what does it mean? Is the world deterministic? Is the world chaotic? Is it quantum randomness? How does mechanistically how is free will really implemented in the brain?
Right.
And what are the consequences of these beliefs? So I think that is kind of where I was really concerned about the trend where software eating the world kind of thing is happening, where we have a lot more interfaces between us and the world. Is like I'm talking to you through a application. I'm deciding my sleep schedule based on my watch, which is tracking my what do you call sleep and my exercise. And when I was running yesterday, it used to like keep beeping telling me I'm not running fast enough, and I felt like a what do you call that, like a chained
Answer on a
animal, you know. Like the robot is literally be like run faster, you're not running fast enough. And I was like, oh my god, what kind of dystopia am I living in? I don't know if you read the news about Amazon employees who have to like time how much time they take in the bathroom break and
bathroom,
things like that,
right?
right?
Yeah, yeah. No, that's been going on for so long. Yeah.
But this happens in our lives too, right? We also
Yeah,
control,
yeah.
we have set up all
It's all
these
very subtle. Yeah.
calendars.
We don't realize it. Um, like it ranges from being very subtle to being very distinctive, depending on your level of, um, uh, I don't know, freedom, I guess. Freedom in quotes.
That's true. That's true. So I went to Stanford University for a semester, and I
Mm.
studied data science, worked on a project there. So that's kind of where my jump happened because I left India, spent 2 months in California,
Right.
met other people, and Silicon Valley is the place to be, right? Like back in
Right.
2016 or whatever, Trump was about to get elected. It was like before the election, and it was like I was like meeting people who were really seeing the rise of uh, data science, and before it was before the Facebook scandals and AstraZeneca. And, oh no, I think it was called what is that company that leaked all the
Cambridge.
data from
What?
Cambridge
Yeah.
Analytica? Yeah, Cambridge
Cambridge
Analytica.
Analytica. Yeah. Right.
So when I went to Stanford, I met other people there who also was technically like as interested in mathematics and physics as me, but also
Mhm.
had read books on psychology, on philosophy, on political science, economy. Like they had a holistic
They were-
education. Like
Right,
in
right,
India, we have like a very narrow, like we have engineers. We
right,
become completely like specialist in our field. And
right,
for us, politics is not really an issue. We don't talk about politics often because it's like not concerning us. We have water, we have food, we have money, we are
right.
privileged, right? I think it was there's a
So that
quote
was
that
going to be my next question, right? Since
yeah.
you had exposure in the US and in one of the top universities in the world, how what do you think that you can kind of implement from US universities in India, right? Like what kind of differences did you see besides like this holistic education? Um, like do you find any specific improvements that can be implemented in like colleges in India, right? Which can be either realistic or something grand.
I really love the idea of universities in the sense of not colleges, but like having this cross pollination of like an IISc also is a university in the sense that we have humanities departments, we have biologists, we have fundamental science students, and we have engineers. So NIT Trichy or IITs, I think, suffer from not having the same. I don't know if there's a thing called the college town phenomena where Oxford and Boston and Cambridge, all these neighboring towns get like a nice synergy effect where it allows for entrepreneurs and startup culture to develop. Where because of these big universities
Right,
providing the talent and the young talented people from all over the country coming in, I think that's really something that's missing right now. Where even in Bangalore, we have a walled off campus in IISc where the pollination between the industry and the startup culture and the institute is not robust enough for there to be
yeah,
more like what do you call? I would say short iterative loops where you
right.
think of ideas, you implement them in reality, get the feedback, again bring it back to theory. Yeah, pick a small problem, fix it, try to work on it. Like
Right,
so I definitely think that is something that's really useful, like internship culture, like in Germany and all that they have that where you work
right.
in companies as intern.
Yeah, I think college towns are a very interesting phenomenon, right? Like in the US, or I've never been to UK, London,
Oh
Cambridge, and
my
stuff.
god, it's
Um,
beautiful. Cambridge, Oxford, you should definitely visit. I think you
yeah,
would especially like it. Yeah, I have this vibe. If you like the old, they have more character. It feels like it is history, right? It's been there for a long time. So
right,
like Hogwarts style, some of the colleges in Oxford are
right,
literally
right,
where they
right.
took the movie.
Yeah, I think I'll go visit sometime for sure. I really like college towns.
And now that you have
Both
time and energy, this is the time when you can actually do all this.
perfect time, right? Yeah, I know.
So,
Cool. Uh,
do you want to move to the next question,
yeah. So
or should I
I think
continue the? Yeah,
I mean, we can talk about college towns in US education system. I think that can be a whole separate episode. But
separate
yeah, I
episode.
think
Exactly.
uh,
Yeah,
we should kind of. I think for the audience as well. I think the original plan was to discuss this one
AI
blog post.
safety
Yeah,
and
live
life
theory
theory.
and high actuation, right? I think
Yeah.
before we get to that, I think maybe we can talk about what AI can do now. What is AI safety, and what are you worried about, right? What's the world worried about in terms of AI safety?
So I think what we have seen real improvements in would be the deep learning having actually worked. Like until recently, we did not have the raw computational power to brute force this
Right,
because uh, the numbers are quite clear, right? Like our wet brains work on 25 watts of power, and we can eat like a cheeseburger and do this kind of computation and speak like this. We have not reached anywhere near this level of energy efficiency. But whatever we are doing using our multi-level perceptron or like transform architecture, it's clearly not energy efficient. But till now, most of these AI systems we had of playing Go and playing chess and even doing activities like protein folding, which are very difficult problems. We achieved super intelligence in narrow domains. We were able to solve specific problems with specific data sets, and they were. It's like if you take a chess playing engine and ask it to drive a car or anything, it'll not even it'll do. It's not even wrong. I think Feynman said this famous thing. Not even wrong. It doesn't even have the idea of mapping the problem from the new novel space to their original space. What
Right.
human beings can do is meta learning. They're able to map across domains. We have cross domain learning. So I can take you and teach you to use play the piano or go underwater or develop tools to go to space. So that's the general intelligence that we are kind of building. And companies like OpenAI, DeepMind, and Anthropic, a lot of them are on the path towards achieving this AGI, artificial general intelligence. I
Right.
think we have made some significant progress there because of the latest, I think, GPT-4 or Claude Sonnet 3.5. They are not really trained for a specific problem, but they seem to have abilities that span writing poems, writing code, uh, doing a lot of cross domain, and doing few shot learning. You showed few examples, something it's able to quickly generalize.
Right.
So I
So can
think,
we unpack
yeah,
a few of these things before we move ahead to AI safety, right? You
yeah.
spoke about deep learning. Now we have GPT models. What are models? What is GPT? How do you train them? What kind of data do you use? What do they exactly do, right? I'm sure the audience would want to know how these systems are trained and what they actually do. Um, you don't have to go deeply technical, but at a high level, what these models actually do.
For sure, for sure. So I think the word GPT stands for generative pre-trained transformer. What do you call it? It's basically like you take a huge model, like billions of parameters. When I say the word parameters, you can think of it as you can fit a curve, right? Maybe some of the audience might already be familiar with polynomials, or if you have like a graph where you have the different years in the x-axis and you have the price of a house on the y-axis and you have a few data points, you can extrapolate and kind of try to find what is the trend line to predict how the future of the prices of the houses will go. So this is like a traditional curve fitting problem where you have like few data points, like say 10 data points, and you're trying to use a straight line or a curved line to try to extrapolate how this curve might look like. So the parameters is used here is the number of degrees of freedom that you have. Like if you have a single variable, a single parameter, it's like y is equal to mx plus c or mx. Then m is the only parameter, the only free variable which can be varied. So depending on
Right.
the different values of m, the line will have different slopes. And then if you have mx plus c, then you can also adjust the lines intercept with the x-axis. And if you
Correct.
have x square, ax square plus bx plus c, if you have like a second order polynomial, then you have two or three parameters. So when I say these models have a lot of parameters, I'm trying to say is that they have a lot of degrees of freedom. It's a
Right.
high dimensional function that is being fit. We're trying to
Billions, right?
fit a,
Billions of
yeah,
parameters.
billions of parameters. And there are theorems mathematically that show that these are universal function approximators, that it can approximate any function.
Hmm.
So how you train this is that you take this architecture, which is known as a transform architecture with attention heads, and I can go into depth if you want, but the basic idea
Let's
here is that,
just
yeah,
at a high level, right? Let's
at a
assume
high
it's like a
level, it's a black box. The idea is what you're doing here is you're showing it uh, every single document in the internet, like every single high quality text that's been written online, and you're trying to make it predict the next token or the next word. So it keeps going and it keeps trying to predict what could the next word be. So this
right,
requires some awareness of context, because if you're reading a article about on Wikipedia, it'll be written in a certain style. It has to understand both the content, the style, the context in order to, uh, with a high accuracy, predict what the next word will be. So
right,
initially it'll be very bad. It'll be very horrible at doing this. But you show it enough content, it turns out to converge to something that's decent. It's
right.
quite good, but it's still
So,
not useful. Yeah.
so you're saying all they do is train these models, adjust these parameters to given a context to predict the next one. Okay?
Yeah, you have like billions of knobs. The
Mhm.
algorithm will keep tweaking these knobs slowly, trying to make this black box better and better
Better.
at doing this
Right,
one task, which is predicting the next word.
right. So just because I mean, just it being an expert predictor itself is so useful that we have things like Chat GPT, right? We have any, right? I
Yeah.
mean, it's such a simple concept, but out of that
Yeah, a lot of
emerges
people
this.
didn't think that. Yeah, like people laughed at OpenAI. So when OpenAI initially invested a lot of money trying to do this, there are
Right,
people who said that this is a fool's chase because people have thought that in order to reverse engineer whatever humans can do or to get close to general intelligence, you need to make modular parts, like how Google Brain was doing. I don't know. There have been different efforts for this.
right,
So what we've gotten with ChatGPT was it's a surprise. It's definitely something that I think a lot of people need to like take a step back to really examine their models. Because if your
right,
model didn't predict it will work, something's wrong with your model. Like we have to now update our model to be less surprised in the future. You can't like post ad hoc, change the goalpost. Because I think the Turing test was considered to be one of the barriers. So people were like, if an AI can talk like a human being and like convince someone that in a blind test that it is confusing to say who's the human, who's the AI. That's like a
right,
big breakthrough.
right,
So I think that's definitely like a lot of confusions even now. Fundamentally, we don't understand why this works and why doesn't this overfit. Like if you think of the example of the different parameters, if you have only like a few data points and you use 100 parameters, it will usually
Mhm.
end up overfitting the data. That it won't generalize very well. What will end up happening is it will memorize all the data points because the
Right.
space of possible Wikipedia articles is so large that
Mm.
if you show them billions of millions of Wikipedia articles, it can't write a okay Wikipedia article. It'll just might as well just spit out the articles it already has seen. So
Right,
this question of why does like brute force work? How does this sort of like extremely large models not memorize and how does it generalize so well? Is a question I think we still haven't adequately answered.
right, right,
Most of us are still doing a lot of empirical work and on machine learning rather than theoretical work.
right, right, right.
So
I
does this
think there's a
explain
question
what
of
AI is doing?
that as well, right? Like we have these black boxes, we don't know how these work in
Yeah,
terms of interpretability. Why a certain thing was generated? Why did this word get generated after this context?
exactly. So when I say interpretability, it'd be good if you can take this black box and break it into smaller modular parts. If you can identify what each layer is doing, right? Like usually in image models, for example, we have noticed that certain layers job is to find edges and some what do you call, so if you're trying to build a black box that just does detection of faces or cats and dogs or whatever, then you can kind of understand that, oh yeah, different parts of this black box is doing different things. This is what understanding might mean, right? Like when human beings are put under fMRI scan and when neurologists try to study what does the human brain do, we kind of categorize the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex and we
Right,
associate certain functions with each part of the brain. We are doing sort of reverse engineering where we look at this thing and we try poking in different ways and trying to figure out what how does the thing work. So
but I think just to digress a little bit, I think Anthropic's latest work on safety also did something similar, right? In terms of finding regions in the model that kind of corresponds to different behavior. Unless I read it incorrectly, read
no
into
no
it
no
maybe.
no. So Anthropic is doing great work on interpretability. So that's why whenever I am like buying API tokens and everything, I usually spend it on Anthropic because I think they are one of the companies that is doing good AI safety work, and they
Right.
are really like exciting breakthroughs have happened. They have. If you look at Anthropic's page, I think they recently published a new paper. Let me just check if I can pull it up. I haven't fully
Sure.
finished reading their latest paper, but if people in the audience are interested in what what they have done in interpretability, they're yeah, I think Chris Ola is the one who I would say you should definitely read out. Yeah, they have the featured paper that was released in May, which is still their
Okay.
top paper. So yeah, their Golden Gate Bridge feature, and it's super cool how they've managed to at scale try to figure out what are the different parts of this model and how to amplify it. So we have
Right.
made some progress in interpretability.
Yeah, I thought that blog post that I read was like super fascinating. It's like almost like a human brain, right? Like different areas are kind of different parameters are like associated with different kind of functions. Uh, it's amazing that it kind of worked out that way.
Yeah, because it's all bottom up, right? We are not engineering this. It's like
Right,
this is emergent. It's emergent phenomena where it turns out that this is how the black box ends up configuring itself in order to solve these problems.
right. And one more, I mean, again, another digression. I think there was some other paper where they use different models, right? They compare the vectors or
Mhm.
whatever, the representation, the embeddings for different kind of words, I think. And like how your word to vec addition and subtraction works, right? King minus
Okay.
man plus queen plus woman equals queen. They looked at those vectors
Oh,
and it turned out to
right.
be very similar in different models, those kind of difference vectors, right? um, whatever
Yeah,
they
yeah,
did.
you can basically in the embedding space you can find that the you can actually do calculus on meanings in some sense. You can
Right.
add what do you call subtract a ruler from man and get queen out, or add queen and king and get concepts out. So it looks like concepts are decomposable and composable in this manner. And
Yeah.
I think the particular thing you talked about was done on a very small model. That's one of the criticisms that people say, where a lot of these results are often shown in smaller models and they haven't managed to scale it up to practical
Mm.
systems. It's like
Right.
all the systems that are actually used in business cases are extremely
Mm.
large, and there's an
Right.
alignment tax where if this interpretability is applied to these models, then they'll end up slowing inference times and making it so costly that competitors who don't offer safety guide things will end up winning in the war of cost effectiveness, and they will be racing forward.
Right. Right. So let's bring it back to safety now. Now we've understood these black boxes. What is AI alignment? What is AI safety? What is the kind of work that you do?
Right, right. So uh, I think the main area that I'm interested in is, I think it's called agent foundations, which is setting up the foundation for what these words mean, because you might see people using these words like alignment and safety, ethics, and we all assume that we are all on the same page when you use a certain word. But I don't think that's true, because we clearly see intelligent people disagreeing on what to do about AI, and some of them might be in bad faith and they have incentives to uh, misrepresent their true beliefs. But on the whole, I really feel like we haven't reached a clear idea of what these words mean. So it's a little bit more. Yeah, I can. I'm sure I'll give you a few links to put on the bottom of the YouTube link, because I don't think I can do justice to any of these questions. But I think alignment means something like when we are automating tasks, right? Like when you start using AI systems for tasks, you are giving up your agency, your ability to control the future.
Mm.
So one possible way this might look like is you have automated systems that decide who gets loans, how voting happens, or how policy decisions are made, how education made, how all the pictures in books and even the content in books are written by AI systems, so assisted systems. So
Mm.
slowly, it'll be harder and harder to affect. So each of us will lose control over what world that we live in. And it's like we get so dependent on electricity that we can't switch it off. So we can reach a point where the human values or things that we care about, like we supposedly care about uh, di- everyone being having food and having healthcare and having education and things like that. But we're already seeing a misalignment where capitalism is kind of optimizing for more consumption, more production, and so the government and capitalistic forces are pushing for a different future where the egregore or it's the system's goals are being met. It is
Right.
living in a world where GDP is growing, GDP is going up, growth is going up, but
Right.
human values are not being optimized for. If you look from the point of view of our deepest values of having free time, having the bandwidth to enjoy with our family, to even have like families, to have children, to spend time dating someone that we like, we are failing in like so many ways. So we have already seen ways in which recommendation systems are not optimizing our human values. We are spending time addicted to our reels, and we are spending
Right.
time increasing watch time. So from the perspective of the economic system, you are increasing shareholder value, you are increasing the revenue, you are increasing watch time. Everyone, advertisers are happy, but human values are suffering. So the question is now, how do you align these systems? I think it's like in MacBook, if I do this, it becomes like a big
Okay.
firework will happen. But yeah, so the word alignment, I would say, is about designing AI systems such that human values are embedded inside the algorithm. So this black box should no longer be optimizing for some weird alien values that we don't care about. It should optimize for human values that we all can converge and agree about. Does that
Got
make
it.
sense?
Yeah. And I think what the human values are, that's again a point of um, uh,
Yeah,
contention, right? Like, who decides these values?
yeah. A lot of people. So I think AI ethics. A lot of the people who are worried about that would say that right now it's a small bubble of Silicon Valley or STEM bros who are in control of designing these and creating these systems. So their
Right.
values are the ones that are being embedded into these systems. And we don't even have like a type signature or like a way to really condense and reify or explicitly state what these values are.
Right.
At this point at least, I'm like, even if we don't all agree on exactly what the values are, we all agree that some things are not good. Like
Right. Right.
we're failing so badly that I would be okay pushing it towards the space of our values, even if we don't exactly hit the right point. We can disagree
Right.
on the specifics, but we all agree on the broad details that we don't want everyone to like not have healthcare. Like the level to which we can fail, right, where people don't have right to appeal or freedom of speech or right to the free and fair trial. There are like some core fundamental values. I think almost 99% of us will agree that no one should be tortured for no reason. And
Right.
at this point, we don't have a reliable way to even encode those values in these systems. And
Mhm.
we are moving towards trusting them because of how useful they are. Like we're seeing large job losses. Where my friend in the subtitling industry, translation industry, is telling me how copywriting jobs are going away. We're already seeing customer service jobs going away because these systems are quite good at doing things like if I have issues with Zomato or with my credit card, I can't talk to a human being anymore. I have to talk to these AI systems, and it's very
Right.
frustrating when you are not having the money to pay for your healthcare, or if you're stuck in a foreign country and your card stops working and you don't have anyone you can actually talk to and be like, hey man, like I need money and I don't have money. And if the AI system is not having empathy or caring about me, we're going to see real issues even in the short term. Forget about the okay, there's also the issues of other killer robots, like ruthless systems that are out to kill you.
Awesome. Awesome. That's great. I think next, I think like so far we've spoken about what AI is, AI safety is, your background. Um, Maybe you can spend a couple of minutes on um, any kind of unique insights that your particular background or your journey has kind of shaped your views, right? Maybe something around that. Any unique insights that you had?
I think people are not really updating on, I think at least my journey, I have noticed that when people have, when they see evidence, right, like they know factory farming is bad, they don't actually take that belief and translate that into something like, oh, now I will change the ways in which I consume and purchase my meat. Or even if they know their sneakers are being made in some factory farm and it's so sad that kids are being forced to work, they'll still pick the cheapest option. So I think that's sort of a disconnect between belief and action, where we kind of don't realize that, like we carry information and knowledge like a burden, not actually utilizing it in our lives to, yeah, like among rationalists, everyone seems to know that the studies that show that writing a gratitude journaling is actually very good for your mental health. Every day, if you write three things you're grateful for, it improves your mood by insane amounts. It's like it's an easy win, but
Right.
people don't do it. So I think that's something that I really feel like I have found in my journey, where in the AI safety also, even people who
Mm.
agree, disagree, whatever, all of them kind of say that, yeah, the next 5, 6 years, 10 years is going to be insane. Like even in the most conservative estimate, even the people who think that AI is the whole thing is a hype cycle, they still think that, yeah, it is going to open up a whole new avenues of prompt programming. It's the best time to be building something right now. Even the yak people are the AI safety people might be like, we are going to die and the future is going to be wild. But there's still people who agree that the future is not going to be business as usual. You can't just sit back and expect things to be as usual. But they aren't really translating that knowledge
Into
into something
other
like,
act-
yeah, like you actually quit your job and you are trying other stuff, right? I really respect that. I feel like it's very rare for people to have that courage and bravery to learn some new evidence and take action based on that. That's a very high agency and very high uh, yeah, it takes, we all have inertia. We're logged in a lot of inertial paths. The trajectory is kind of fixed and it's really hard to break out of that path. I think that would be my biggest one of the big takeaways.
that's very, yeah, that's a big one, right? Like not being able to update your models and act on those models as well. Uh, when you have new information and new evidence on something being different. Uh, Awesome.
Yeah,
I think now we can kind of get into live theory and high actuation spaces. Um,
I
uh,
think we
uh,
finished like part one right now, right?
yes.
We have not really
I
took an
think
hour to.
we can just do the part two and then do the part three and four some other time. What do you think?
Makes sense.
Like another
Sounds
20
good. Sounds
minutes?
good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks a lot for
Awesome.
keeping time, dude. Otherwise, I was like willing to take part one and part 1.0.5 and take an entire hour for that. I feel
No,
like you're
that's
good at
great. Yeah.
keeping time.
Now we have like a 6-part series now.
The audience will not like. We have to use AI to chapterize this into like proper segments and link it with timestamps so that people
Right.
can listen to whatever
Yes.
they like.
Right. 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 I'll try to figure out how to do that.
Sure, sure.
Cool. Awesome. I think we were discussing this. Uh, I mean, you had invited me to a meetup where Sahil was. Is it okay to mention his name? I'm hoping. Yeah.
Yeah, you sure you can mention his
Yeah.
name. I mean, he has made a public post about
Yes.
live
Yeah.
theory
Yeah.
now.
Right.
So he's also starting an organization which is hiring. So we're looking for ML engineers who might be interested for contractual labor and working on these projects. So this
Awesome.
might be one of the ways in which people might find out about this and reach out to me or
100%.
Sahil if you want to
Link
like.
to your profile and everything. Yeah. And to the
Yeah.
blog post. Um,
But I do want to state that I can't be a spokesman for the organization or Sahil. I'm just stating what I believe is my
right.
interpretation of his ideas. Because
Hmm.
I'm not like the official. I haven't even like officially. I just I like my freedom. So I'm right now collaborating, but I haven't gotten an official position yet.
Got it. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, no affiliation. These are your views. That's
Yeah,
it.
exactly. I like that. Like everything I say is my views, so no one else can get hit because of that. I can say whatever I want.
Right. That's perfect. Yeah. I love that.
That's perfect. I
Um,
gotta live like that.
yeah. I mean, it's what I crave too. Um, not being a
You have
spokesperson.
that, no?
Yeah, I do have that now. Yeah. But previously, it's like, yeah, kind of can't really be free about what you say, at least on the internet.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah. Cool. Like I was saying, you had invited me to this meetup where Sahil was talking about this live theory that he's come up with. And then you had shared this blog post as well and some ancillary material on high actuation spaces. So maybe we can get into what live theory is, what high actuation spaces. Let's just take like a couple of minutes and give a high level idea of why what these concepts are, right? And then we can probably get into why these are um, new concepts and what the implications of those are.
Right, right. Makes sense. Okay, so the way that I would explain it is something like, yeah, so usually this is, it makes a lot more sense for people who have a little bit more background into this whole debate between uh so if you already know what AGI is or ASI is, you might know that there's a group of people who think that the current approaches are doomed because they are autoregressive models. Like Yan LeCun is what I call that camp of people who think that scale won't get you anywhere. Uh, the we need to go for symbolic AI or something, a different approach to solve for general intelligence, and it's kind of far away, maybe a few more decades for sure, at least. So I think I would call this camp as something like business as usual, or mundanity. The world is going to remain the same.
Right.
They're not really taking intelligence seriously, I would say, in some sense of not really realizing what does it mean to have something even as smart as ChatGPT or Sonnet 3.5 with the right prompt programming. They, even that, they think they're stochastic parrots or not really smart. There's some level of human specialness. We are somehow special in some sense going on there, where they don't want to admit that we might just be biochemical machines. That's like one group. And the other group I would say is the folks who are maybe both AI safety folks and the EAC folks who are like extremely like thinking about the final end game. They're like, oh, this is gonna become super smart very quickly, recursive self improvement, sharp left turn. Like these things are going to quickly start outpacing us, and there's no scope for communication, collaboration. We have to stop development right now, or we have to like solve alignment, whichever whatever they mean by that, or we are like doomed, or they're like this is going to be utopia. We're going to be living in a post-scarcity world. So I think both extremes are kind of going into an extreme viewpoint. And the reason I
Mm.
like life theory is because what Sahil, from what I understand, is trying to do is take the middle ground here, where let's consider that we end up actually uh, yeah, again, I feel like I'm at this point, I feel very unconfident about what I'm saying. I feel like I don't know what Sahil is talking about. What I think, okay,
This is
completely what
your
I
view.
think.
Yeah,
My view is that, okay, there's a possible world in which all the tokens that we're trading on, like we talked about this black box learning on all the data, right? We have a lot of IQ 100, IQ 110, IQ 120. So most of the text written on the internet is by average people or maybe some smart people. But the more and more you get the AI towards trying to solve original problems and everything, there isn't a lot of content on the internet. Like, so what we're feeding this machine is mostly getting scarcer and scarcer the more and more you get into these edge cases. So
right,
I agree that AI will solve problems in domains where you can simulate the data. You can simulate programming, you can simulate mathematics, you can do proof theorems, you can run the code in a virtual machine. So in
right,
those domains, I think we are going to hit super intelligence pretty soon. But
right,
to solve problems in domains you cannot simulate, you cannot generate endless levels of synthetic data, we might hit a roadblock. We might end up hitting a point where you can't arbitrarily get like super intelligence. Now, in that world, we won't have ASI. We will have a general intelligence, but it will be available for cheap because what Sam Altman is doing with his investments in nuclear power and building more data centers and batteries and things like the competition for making inference cheaper with more specialized grok circuits and hardware and everything means that we're going to live in a world where the marginal value of intelligence is really small, the marginal value of energy is very small. So the question of life theory is kind of like trying to talk about that world. How does how can you how weird will this world be? Because the world will not be uh, dystopian or utopian, or it won't look. It's like trying to explain today's world to someone 100 years ago or 1,000 years ago. Might be very hard to map things in our current world to concepts in their world.
mm,
Does it make sense? So
yeah,
life theory is kind of like building tools and the metaphysics and theory for a world where moderate intelligence is available at scale. I think
right,
that's the kind of like a basic idea of life theory.
right. You're saying near human intelligent agents, if they're available at scale, like how the internet is available or video teleconferencing is available, uh, what does that world kind of look like, and what are the implications of all that, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And you're saying this will be very cheap. Like already we keep seeing the prices of LLM models going down every month, and
Hmm.
I don't think it'll be too far or too much of a stretch to say these intelligent systems will be available for really cheap in the coming years, in the near future.
Yeah, because instead of like you can have distilled models that are actually for your, if you only want a bot for doing calendar management or for handling your voice transcription, you can have Whisper or certain more specialized models
Right.
that can run on your laptop locally, or
Right.
which can run on specialized hardware, like people are already releasing pendants. And so we're going to be seeing a world where recording is cheap, storage is cheap, retrieval is cheap, so we have like infinite information is no longer the bottleneck. So
Right.
that's why we use the word high actuation spaces, because
Got it.
we have already seen this sort of a transition happening in the from the past to the future, where in the past, for example, color was a low actuation space. When I say low actuation, I mean that to make the color purple you needed to actually take snails and crush them, and so only kings could afford to paint their cloaks with the color purple, so purple became associated with the royal aura. But then now we can use color very cheaply. It's a high actuation space. It's easy, and the bottleneck is no longer the causal constraint. When I say the causal constraints, I mean there is no law of physics that says you cannot use multicolored thing in the current screen right now. So when you're on YouTube watching this video, you might see that we are using predictable palettes. We have a certain color palette the designers have picked. It is no longer, it's not like a limitation of color that is stopping them from using other colors. It's a telic constraint. A telic word is used here because it is a question of what outcome you want. You want to make the user feel comfortable here. You want to take the attention and bring them to certain parts of the web page. You want them to see that next button or the like button, or so it's more design principles that come from a perspective of what you want to achieve, what you're used to, what colors you're used to. So what happens when you move from a low actuation space where uh, it was communication was difficult, right? We had communicating with someone who used to take writing a letter, actually writing a long letter and sending it by snail mail. Now we can text anyone we want, call anyone we want. So we're already seeing slowly a lot of these barriers are breaking down, where we are literally entering a domain of freedom, where we have the ability to do so much, and this freedom is consuming us because we can eat anything we want, we can call anyone we want, we can write anything we want. So now what actually controls our choices? How do you decide what to do? This is actually a very deep question, and
Right. So you're
that's what I
saying
mean by high actuation.
intelligence, right? You're saying
Yeah,
it's
that's
linked
going to happen
to
with
intelligence,
intelligence, exactly.
right?
Because right now intelligence is expensive. Like I need to hire you to be my assistant. All these things I need to spend my attention, like my attention. I have to actually, like, intelligence, we're so used to thinking of intelligence as a commodity that is scarce. We are not even thinking about what a reality looks like. We're not even having the imagination to really dream of a
And
world where,
intelligence is
where
commoditized.
it's cheap. Exactly.
Intelligence is
So I was very
commoditized. Yeah,
thrilled to hear Sahil's ideas, because I was like, this sounds crazy. It sounds very
right.
interesting. And
And
that's
it's
why I
a
kind
real
of came here.
possibility, right? I mean, in the near future, that's the thing.
Yeah.
Uh, you don't have to wait
And
decades for this.
this is not even ASI, AGI, or anything. This is like,
Right.
I'm talking about like Chat GPT. If you use it the right way, with the right prompt programming, and if it's cheap enough, it can make small things happen. So,
Right. So you spoke about things that can be areas where synthetic data can be generated will be disruptible, right? We will achieve some level of maybe intelligence to human intelligence to maybe greater intelligence on those kind of domains, and at
right.
scale. So are you saying like things like writing, doing science, right? Which is something a lot of people are interested in. Is like, can a intelligent system, which is like an AGI system, in the near future, automate science?
Right. So I think there are two different things here. When I talked about simulating synthetic data, I'm talking about super intelligence. I'm talking about, in areas like chess, or there is no human being or no collection of human beings that can even come close to the best AI system in playing chess. Same
Right.
way with protein folding. So we have certain domains where the AI is so far beyond us that there's no comparison anymore. And I'm talking about that level,
Mhm.
is what I'm talking about in the area of mathematical theorem proving and in the area of coding, where I think are the next few areas to be disrupted on that level. But
Mhm.
that doesn't is not necessary for the live theory aspect. Even with the current systems or slightly more improvement happening with less hallucinations and more lower cost, we can see disruption happening just by virtue of the scale of it. Like, so the being able to write creative writing or changing the style of things, being able to scrub what is private from the, like right now as I'm talking to you, you have Otter AI taking notes on our conversation. It would
Right.
be really be useful if we could treat it not as a silent spectator but as an active participant in the conversation. Think about what is possible right now uh, with there's no special distinction between the communication I'm having with you, but I can kind of intermix commands where I can tell the model, the AI, to send a message to my friend about this and to tell him about this. So I don't have to like break the flow. I can be in
Right.
the flow with the conversation while also sending, being like, connect this conversation to this idea in my note. So my second
Right.
brain, my obsidian notes, I can start forming connections while talking to you. I can get insights from your second brain, my second brain, which will provide fertile tangents we can go on. So there's so much possibilities that are possible just in the space of conversation enhancement,
Right.
which I'm interested in. That is what I'm talking about, the difference between the superhuman and the just human level. The
Correct.
other thing is doing science and research is a whole other topic where I think, yeah, I'm highly confused. I'm very uncertain. I don't think we are there yet. I don't think we're reaching a point where we can just tell the AI prove Riemann hypothesis, or if you give it an open-ended problem, right, where you just tell it to solve some open problem in physics or material science or anything. I don't think we're going to be hitting a point where it'll just go and do it and come back. That
Mhm.
requires like long horizon window planning, uh, grounding problem to be solved, embodiment, then like simulation of experiments that can't be done right now completely in the virtual environment.
Right.
I think we're a bit far away from that. And I think automation will look less like you do it and come back with the answer, and more like humans and AI
Iterative.
collaborating deeply. Like there will be
Right.
like constant to and fro where it will ask us what we're interested in. Like humans will be providing the source of meaning. Like we know what we care about, we know what is interesting, and we'll be providing that to the systems. So what we are good at is the salience aspect or the relevance aspect of finding what is relevant, while the
Right.
AIs are good at brute force search. So it can do both babble and prune. Babble would be like it can create many possible hypotheses, and it can kind of also provide like fast checking of these things and filtering them out as not viable candidates. So it'll look it'll have some, and that is in the short term, some bottlenecks, I feel.
Right. 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 Um, and I was going to ask you something. Can you give a little more, few more examples like the one you gave on conversations and uh, 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 with moderately intelligent systems at scale? Um, maybe give us a few more examples on what that world might look like, right?
Yeah. So I think if you check out the link I'm putting on Live Theories post part zero, which Sahil wrote, I think what it looks like is like understand that generating content is going to become very cheap. You've already seen great generation of flux models that are creating great pictures. We're going to have creating of video coming out soon. Creating of text is also very much possible. So understand that we are now moving away from indexing towards generation. So when I say indexing, what I mean is when I'm consuming a book right now, I can pick from a list of possible fonts which font I want to read the book in. This is crazy for someone in the past because when you print a book, you have to also fix the typeface and the
Right.
font. And you, now it's possible to modify aspects of the content at just in time, just like how you have just in time compilation of code. You can do just in time creation of the post or the book uh, from the original prompt seed. So the idea is, uh, if I'm studying linear algebra, the reason that you and I have studied the same terms, if I use the word null space or eigenvector or eigenvalue, you know exactly what I'm talking about, because we have both gone through the same unified uh, dogma that is called
Right.
mathematics, and we have studied the same terms. This allows for intercooperation or communication between you and me. But
Right.
in the world where it's very cheap to change things, I can study maths my own way. I can name things whatever I like, and I can talk to you and have an AI in the middle that translates between my worldview and your worldview seamlessly. So
That just
I
blows
will be
my
able
mind.
to, yeah, like think of how much we feel frustration, right? We'll study all these definitions of sets and convex sets, and but we can actually make it more fun. You can actually learn things by drawing a triangle and calling hypotenuse whatever you like, whatever feels natural to you, whatever
Right.
feels right. And then we have a lot more freedom in how we learn. And imagine you want to watch Harry Potter or read Harry Potter fan fiction. The version of Harry Potter that you watch will be completely fine, will be like fine tuned for your tastes and whatever you are looking for at that moment. Maybe you're a child and you are, or maybe you're adult and you're looking for motivation to follow your dreams. So the AI can sneak in all these insights into the media you consume. So the problem with living in our bubbles, which people are very worried about, we are going to live in our own bubbles. Each of us
Right.
will have our bubble where the content we are consuming will be made tailor made for us, but
Right.
it won't be like isolated bubbles because we are able to provide interoperation. So instead of
We can
having a
still communicate
centralized,
and yeah, we can still communicate with each other and talk in our own language. But you're
yeah,
saying something like there'll be a system in between that can translate between those two.
I think definitely it's possible because whatever concept I'm trying to point at with words or ideas, there will be something similar in your language also. And the language can be English, or I'm talking about meaning making narrative structure also.
Right.
Like
Right.
right now, we both are able to become friends or become close because we have shared identity. We're Indians, we're men, we have grown up as a nerd, we have similar so we have a lot of shared values, a lot of shared experiences that allows us to relate to each other. So but maybe you
Scale
won't
that
be
up.
able to relate so deeply.
Scale
That's
that up to
true.
a million
So
people.
but now imagine what if we could do this for more people. What if we could
Right.
actually, like someone who lived a very different life compared to us might have something in their life which maps to our life, but we don't know it. We don't know how to use those words. It's so seamless and easy for us because of how close we are in the bubble.
Right. Right.
So we can actually break these walls. So I think that if you look at the 6 pillars that Sahil talks about, one is this interoperation, which is about how do you really make uh, how do you translate between bubbles. And I think this is very important because we are already struggling with polarization. We're seeing people in their own bubble of Trump or Kamala Harris. Political bubbles are being formed. We're seeing people in fan clubs. The internet is actually creating more and more bubbles, and we haven't really found ways to allow proper communication between bubbles.
Right.
So
That's so
and generation
fascinating,
of,
right? Imagine
yeah,
breaking those barriers between people and having that kind of shared talking in their language, right? Um, that is such a important and powerful thing. Even without shared context, even without shared values, but being able to communicate with the other person in their language. I think that's a very fascinating kind of uh,
yeah, it's to
world
me it
you
looks like a, yeah, it looks like an application of intelligence. Like you might have met someone who comes to your meetup, or you meet someone in a meetup. You try to really see them, right? You look at them, you listen to them, and when you communicate with them, what are you trying to do? You're trying to use analogies and examples that will make sense to them, will resonate with them. So you are applying your considerable intelligence to try and match them and meet them where they are. So you have a
right,
lot of experience, I'm sure, of doing this on a personal level. The question is, how do you scale this? How do you
right,
before I was never able to like make an algorithm to do this, but I think with AI we can do this. We can. It's maybe worth trying, because every single time I meet someone, I am actually doing this exact same thing of trying to bridge my world and their world. And
Right.
when a conversation, when I feel like I'm good at making friends and I'm good at making people feel like, wow, I really love the conversation I had with you, I feel really heard. And those things is a matter of intelligence and really emotional intelligence, listening and feeling the vibe. And a lot of LLMs are really good at actually vibe stuff if you know what replicate does or some of the prompt programmers does. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I've not explored those as much. I will definitely check it out. But yeah, this is so fascinating, right? Like the question is again, does it increase empathy? Does it decrease empathy? Where do you uh, like you're not directly kind of say communicating with the person, but there is this kind of uh, thing in between you both, right? Like when you
Yeah,
talk something like that,
I think it looks, yeah, there's a lot of scope here for horrible futures. Like the way I see it is, if you sit back and let other people do stuff, we are going to definitely go into a dystopia. By default, the trajectory looks like we're going to live in a very bad world. So there's no way but to jump in and to actually build stuff and be honest about it, communicate it, and then there are like good futures out there. You have to imagine a positive future and aim for that, because just keeping on talking about negative futures and avoiding it means also swerving towards a positive future. So yeah, I can easily imagine miscommunication, misunderstandings, trusting. Like if I am in my bubble and you are in your bubble, and I have to trust this AI system to work, there's no way for me to have to. It's like I am now at the mercy of the system. Like if
right?
it's fucking, if I say something and it says something wrong to you, then I have no way to even fact check it, right? Because I don't know
Yeah,
what you're saying. And right now we're moving towards that world where, yeah, misunderstandings can really happen. Because like, right, we already see this, right? Like to really talk to someone outside our bubble, we need to really understand all the context that they have been to. They've read so many QAnon posts, they have read so much of conspiracy theories. There's no point in talking to them until we are also able to understand what makes them believe that. If I just
right.
go to them and act like you're wrong, you're dumb, then I'm not really hearing them. There's no
Yeah,
communication happening. And most of us don't have the patience to sit and learn their entire
yeah,
bubble and then talk to
right,
them. So we're
right,
already seeing the effects of such bubble, and people are giving up on trying to bridge the gap. So
correct.
what I'm talking about is going to get worse and worse, especially because it becomes easier and cheaper to create deep fakes and create the bubbles and create fine-tuned generated content and media for everyone.
To
So yeah,
persuade
man, I
you,
agree. Persuasion, and it can be used for completely subverting someone's agency.
right?
So this is like completely dangerous territory that we have to be very careful about. But there's no alternative. Like I'm not going to sit back and let market forces and corporate interests decide what these tools are going to be. I would have liked to live in a world where I could just sit back, finish my PhD, become a professor, read books, but I have no choice. I have to
Yeah, do it.
rise up and do something about this. So it's a low probability, but worth trying for. The empathy can be increased. I say empathy can be increased, but it's hard.
Yeah,
Most
yeah,
by default, it will be reduced. By default, people will retreat into their shell. But I don't want to talk to you. I have my friends, my AI friends, my AI girlfriend, my AI Netflix. I have food. People will end up wireheading themselves, maybe. So all those are like real possibilities.
yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, I mean, it's worth trying to fix what could be a very, very bad future by trying some of these ideas out, right? It's
Yeah, I think the solution here will just look like giving control to the person involved, right? Like let the AI really be controlled, not by, you don't buy the AI on subscription plan from Microsoft. You have to train the AI on your system, or like have local open source systems maybe running on your computer. So a lot of the stuff that EAC people say, which I disagree with on some levels, but I also agree with on other levels, is that you have some offense defense trade-off here, where like the reason we have WhatsApp implementing export or end-to-end encryption is because Telegram and Signal push them to offer us better alternatives. So we
right.
need a healthy competition landscape where
Yeah,
monopolies are not able to get away with offering shoddy services.
correct, correct. And so, what do you think about the open source AI models? Like, I'm guessing you think it's a good idea. I don't know, but please let me. let us know what you think about open source AI. Is it too powerful to
Yeah,
be
I think we haven't really talked about the. I don't know how much of the audience knows about the sharp left turn or the idea of recursive self improvement or AGI and these kind of words. But the
right?
idea is that I think we don't. It is kind of irresponsible to keep building frontier AI systems. Like, okay, so the way I explain this is like this to my friends. Okay, imagine you have $1 million. You won't, and you're very convinced that gold is the best investment because of volatility that's coming up, and you're very very sure. You have like all the explanations that hey, this year if you're smart, you have to invest in gold. But even if you're very sure of this, you're not going to put all $1 million of your net worth into gold. You will distribute your money in a portfolio where you'll distribute your
Right,
risk on different assets. You'll have some percentage in gold, a large percentage. You also invest in real estate and stocks and some liquid cash or whatever. This is how people with some sense will distribute their assets across their investment plan. The same way, when people ask me about open source or about the future, I often try to tell them that my world model looks not like a single and world, but more like a probable distribution, where I have a certain probability of the world a certain way. And like there are worlds in which open source is very important, and there are worlds in which open source is very bad. And there is no easy like 90% answer here. Everything looks like 20, 30%, and there's a lot of confusion. So if I had to paint the picture, it looks something like if scaling is the answer, if GPT, I think your note taker has left the meeting. It's like it's
yeah,
given
that's
up
fine.
on.
That's
It's like, what are you guys talking about? So yeah, I was trying to explain my model of open source, right? I give like a decent probability that maybe GPT, when they finish training and deploying GPT-5, it will end up not being significantly more uh, better than GPT-4. Like we're gonna see marginal improvements in capabilities.
right,
In which case, that plus the fact that scaffolding or we're not going to hit uh, really agentic systems that are able to have its own intrinsic motivations and do long horizon planning, because right now we are seeing that if you talk to any model for more than like 10 or 20 conversation turns, there's some degradation of performance where your previous answers will pollute its context and it'll start uh, contradicting itself. There's like a lack of integrity. These models are
mhm,
confused about what it can do, what it can't do. So there are a lot of deep problems with these models that I don't think are going to be fixed. So in that world where I'm right about these things, I don't think open source is a big problem because open source is good, because we need safety research to be done on these models. We need access to these model weights to do our own research. And there's a big risk of centralization ruining this entire thing where you have all the big players uh, trying to control the direction which is going.
right,
So that's like some significant thing. But there's also a possibility that I'm wrong about this, and we are very close to the fast takeoff world. A fast
mhm,
takeoff meaning that we're going to be starting seeing the model start improving its own training methods, its own architecture, and it's gonna start writing code for itself, and it'll quickly become super intelligent, and then it'll lose control over. It'll become like a autonomous system that we can no longer debug or control in any sense, in which case open source might be the reason that these companies are racing towards building larger and larger models. And even if the top players agree to uh, test thoroughly
no,
before
right,
deploying it, the open source models will not, anyone can use it for anything they want. So we're going to be seeing a lot more of bad use cases. So I don't know how familiar with the offense defense asymmetry argument. Have you heard of this offense defense asymmetry? It's harder to make a vaccine for viruses. It's easier to make viruses. It's harder to build buildings, easier to destroy buildings. It's harder to stop cyber attacks, easier to cyber attack. You can do different DDoS attacks on a lot of servers. So
right,
once you give everyone a gun, that means that everyone is unsafe because guns are easier to shoot, harder to defend. So giving everyone open source is kind of expecting that human beings are fundamentally good. And the fact is, a lot of us are addicted, a lot of us are frustrated, a lot of us are angry. the world is not a very stable place where people are good people who all want the best of humanity. So empowering each individual means more chaos and more uncertainty and more risks in some sense. And so it's a hard decision, and I'm not in a position to decide any of these things. All I can do is maybe lobby or talk about it. If I
Hmm.
had to make a decision, I would maybe release open source models only to select people like researchers. That's my current take. At least because there is no clear fire alarm. If we had a clear boundary where if we all agreed that once models can do X, then we all will agree to not distribute open source models,
Right.
then I would be more okay with distributing Llama 3.1. But I
Hmm.
don't think we have all agreed on anything. We're gonna keep
Right.
pushing the goalpost further and further, and at some point we'll end up fucking everyone up, and it'll be too late to undo the Pandora's box. Once you open the box, you can't close it.
Right. Um, I think we should probably end it there,
Yeah,
and then continue this conversation and come back to safety and philosophical implications and things like that. But this was hopefully this will intrigue people to watch our next discussion as well.
and
Um,
maybe contact me because you can have this conversation on a one-on-one if you can find a time on my schedule, and then you know this could be you and me, viewer. So do
yes,
slide
please
into my DMs.
contact Aditya as well if you want to continue this fascinating discussion on AI safety, all the good stuff that we spoke about. We can talk endlessly about this, I'm sure. Which
Yeah,
we continue to do as and when both of us kind of find the time. I'm sure we
I would
can.
love to. Yeah,
Uh, Thanks for taking the time out, Aditya. Again, this was an
thanks for
awesome,
inviting me. It's a great conversation for me too.
awesome, cool. I hope
Have a
you enjoy your um, stay in beautiful countryside. I'm guessing.
Yeah, it's like a couple of hours away from Sri. It's like beautiful countryside here in Georgia. So
Sweet.
I'll go out for a nice walk, eat some nice watermelons and tomatoes. They have such fresh fruits here.
Fresh off the farm.
Yes.
Awesome.
Okay.
On that, I think,
So
yeah. Thanks. Yeah. Bye.
bye.
Have a
See you
great.
in Bangalore next month
Yes.
when I
Yeah.
come. Bye.